Welcome, everyone. Today, we will be talking about the confessions of love. Who here has confessed their love to someone? By a show of hands. No one dares answer. Who here would like to confess their love and is looking for some words? Well, if you are, you're in the right class. Because today, we will be looking at 3 different confessions of love from 3 different eras of history to find out how people have taken the step of letting the other person know the depths of their heart. Sometimes it's successful. Then we have a happily ever after, the couple get together. And sometimes there's rejection. So we'll see both, and perhaps you can take some of these words of confession when you are faced with someone you love in the future. The first piece that we're going to look at is a statue by Canova. It's Psyche revived by Cupid's kiss. And this is housed currently in the Louvre. As you can see, it's very detailed and very balanced, as one would imagine from the neoclassical era. Do you see that? And the material, just for basic information, is marble. But notice how the marble and metal is used in such a way that it is almost soft when it is depicting the skin. So this is really high craftsmanship. Even though it is stone, you can really feel the different textures that are being depicted. The dimensions are life-sized, so pretty much the same size, if not a little bit bigger than an actual human. And to view it, you can actually walk around it. And I will be showing you some pictures of the statue from different sides. And you can also visit the website posted here to go look at it yourself. The provenance of this statue is that it was commissioned by someone, and it journeyed across Europe until finally it ended up at the Louvre. And it's based on a very famous and very important Greek myth about Psyche and Cupid, which we will look at today. So here's some more pictures of it, just to get an idea of it. Look how thin the wings are, by the way. Look at how the light is going through the wings. And here's the back side. So we have on top here Cupid, the god of love, also known as Eros, depending on if you're Roman or Greek. And here is Psyche. Psyche used to be a mortal, so a regular girl, and then later, because of this story, she became a god of the mind. And you know the word psychology, right? And psyche, or psychopath. So Psyche is the goddess of the mind. But right here in this story, she is still just a regular girl, a human. So how did we end up in this scene? I think the best way is to watch a little video I found on WeChat videos, because it is a little bit clearer than me trying to tell you in English. So here it is. Whoops, wrong one, this one.
她是西方神话中凡间最美丽的女子。她的故事是西方心理学，尤其是荣格学派最重视和反复研究的神话之一。赛姬是一个国家的三公主，是个美丽的歌族，世间男人们都倾倒于她的美丽。这以高美和爱的女神，她会带给深深的妒忌。女神命令自己的儿子丘比特去解决自己的心头大患。她决定让赛姬爱上了野兽。
丘比特就是 Cupid or Eros. They're all the same name.
你对赛姬父母说，把你的女儿带到山里，用铁链绑在岩石上，等待死亡的来临。赛姬的父母无奈照做。少女一个人在山里陷入绝望的时候，执行任务的丘比特看见了她。事实上，很多时候对少女来说，婚礼的确就是葬礼，是与死神的结合。它代表着少女天真无邪、对生命充满幻想的状态的终结。有的时候更因为要逃离原生家庭而进入婚姻。丈夫们终结了妻子的少女身份，强迫她们迈向成熟女性的 比特看到赛姬时，爱神之剑不小心刺到了自己的绳子，就这样爱上了赛姬。他请求朋友西风将他从山顶举起，移到了天堂谷，让他变成自己的新娘。每天晚上，丘比特都会陪在赛姬身边，只规定一件事：绝对不可以看他的脸，也不能去探究他的所作所为，其他的什么都行。大概所有的男性都会希望自己的妻子能这样。如果妻子可以不要拥有自己的主张，按照丈夫的方式做事，那么家里就能够保有绝对的宁静和祥和。但赛姬的两位姐姐认为她的丈夫是可怕的怪物，她们建议妹妹等到丘比特熟睡的时候，点亮油灯，看清楚他的面孔，并且用匕首割下他的头。赛姬怀着矛盾的心态采纳了这个建议。到了半夜，她掀开灯罩，发现丈夫是俊美的男神，惊慌之中不小心碰到了丘比特的箭头，立刻爱上了初次谋面的丈夫。丘比特发现了赛姬，于是展翅逃离，并且他责备赛姬打破了承诺，他们不得不从天堂中离开。荣格认为，丘比特代表着女性心中阳性的自己，即阿尼姆斯。当女性第一次凝视自己的阳性面相，她的独立。
Animus. Okay, so we were talking about Carl Jung's archetypes. So Jung believes that Eros was the animus of a female.
意识就开始萌芽，他们开始说不，并且开始寻求自己做主。丘比特飞回了母亲阿弗戴蒂的身边。现实生活中遇到了这样的情况，婚姻不顺，男性总习惯脱离自己的婚姻，回到原生家庭，或者是长时间的保持沉默、敷衍，情感上毫无回应。到了这里，赛姬想要跳河自杀，没错，旧有的生活方式死去了。阻止赛姬自杀的是古老的神奇贪。他劝说赛姬，为了获得力量，必须勇敢地面对内心那个原始而黑暗的成熟女性，即阿弗戴蒂。阿弗戴蒂给了赛姬4个挑战，这4个挑战后来被视为女性成长中必须跨越的4个阶段。第一个任务，阿弗戴蒂让赛姬去处理一大堆混杂在一起的各式种子，告诉他必须在傍晚前把这些种子分类好，不然就会被处死。在崩溃之前，一群蚂蚁从地底下跑来帮助赛姬，他们团结合作，在傍晚前完成了任务。阿弗戴蒂回来，心不甘情愿地承认，一无是处的赛姬其实做得还不错。事实上，分类和排序的能力就是女性的天赋之一，不仅仅是外在的窗明几净、井井有条，她们更能够创造非常和谐的内在的秩序，情感与思想的和谐，价值观与行为的一致，心灵与身体的链接，平静的、不轻易被影响的心灵状态。赛季接下来还要面对怎样的挑战呢？阿弗戴蒂会让他经历怎样的成长呢？下一个视频我们想说。
Whoa. Okay. Next one, not this one. 下一个视频是这个。
是派给了赛季第2项任务，让他渡过一条河，到对岸放养金公羊的地方取一些金羊毛，而且必须在日落前回来。赛季一筹莫展的时候，河堤上的芦苇对他说话了。芦苇说，在傍晚的时候，从灌木丛或者是低矮的树枝上去搜集缠在上面的羊毛，就可以在不引起公羊群注意的情况下完成任务。要用间接的方式接近这些顽固好斗的危险野兽，智取而不是强夺。赛姬听从芦苇的建议，顺利地完成了任务。公羊代表着一种宏伟阳刚的阳性特质，有侵略性、爆发力。在我们这个充满竞争、冷漠的父权社会，这种特质似乎是必须的。但是，怎样的阳刚力量才算是够的呢？其实，对于女性来说，她能够以自己的女性身份认同为中心，有意识地汲取和使用她的阳刚能量，视其为辅导工具，而不是人生的主导，就没有一个具体的限制。第3项任务，阿弗戴蒂给了赛姬一个水晶杯，命令他去取冥河的水。冥河是一条在高山和地底循环不断的河流，水流湍急，有危险的猛兽看守，这让赛姬全身瘫软，害怕到甚至哭不出来。但这个时候，宙斯的老鹰犹如魔法般出现，在看到赛姬遭遇了这么多挑战以后，宙斯决定公开出面帮助赛姬。老鹰飞到沮丧的赛姬身边，取走了水晶杯，飞到冥河的中央，在危险的急流中舀满满一杯河水，安全地带着水晶杯回来。赛姬的任务又完成了。女性的特质就像海洋，就像阿弗戴蒂从海中升起，虽然充满了可能性、丰富性、创造力，但也容易被无序和混乱填满。现实世界中，女性的意识之河流，还有不安全感、焦虑、羞耻感、低价值感等种种猛兽横行。她们必须学着像老鹰那样看到全景视角，但在面对辽阔的河流时，还是必须学习集中在单一点上进行取水工作，排除干扰，学习在生活的某一个方面聚焦，集中吸收，心满意足，然后再去体 体验下一个视角。第4项任务最为艰难，赛姬必须进门府，请隐秘的门后Persephone赐予他一盒美容膏，并且将其交给阿弗莱狄。赛姬深知前往冥界的危险，他感到非常绝望，再次萌生了自杀的念头。但一座塔的神灵出现，给他指引，让他带上2枚硬币和2块蜂蜜面包，专注于任务，而且一定不要被怜悯和同情心分散。到达银河渡口，赛姬用1枚硬币搭上了渡船，途中一名溺水者向他求救，赛姬坚定地拒绝了他。随后，他又遇见了3位颠身命运的老妇，尽管他们邀请赛姬帮忙，但赛姬也没有停下脚步。因为停下脚步意味着他要浪费一块宝贵的蜂蜜面包。接着，他遇到了3头恶犬科尔贝厄斯，赛姬投下了一块面包，趁他们争食之际，迅速的穿过，成功的拿到了Persephone的美容膏。事实上，女性在寻找自我的过程中，非常容易因为天生具有的好心、善意而偏离目标，并且耗尽心神与力气。牢记目标，不去滥用自己的同情心和善意，设立边界感，对于很多女性来说是非常大和必要的考验。拿到了美容膏，凭借剩下的面包和硬币，赛姬顺利地返回了人间。然而，她忘记了高塔之人的最后的警告：不要打开盒子。在好奇心的驱使下，她打开了美容膏盒子，结果被一股强烈的睡意击倒，失去了知觉。在赛姬昏迷前的呼喊中，丘比特挣脱了母亲的束缚，飞到了他身边，用剑尖刺进了他，并且提醒他继续完成任务。同时，丘比特自己飞去请求宙斯的帮助。宙斯感动于赛姬的坚持，召集众神为2人举办了婚礼。婚礼上赐予了赛姬长生不老的圣水，使她成为了不朽的女神。这次任务原本可以失败告终，但在最后关头，赛姬的阳刚力量丘比特起了作用，拯救了她。爱神之剑唤醒了她。这并不是普通的恋爱故事，而是一个女性走完了内在觉醒之路，完成了内在阳性阴性的神圣结合，灵魂找到爱，并永远活在爱中，永不分离。
All right, so you see, the story, let me just get to this slide, that leads to this scene is after Psyche has opened the box containing Persephone's secret potion of immortal beauty, of eternal beauty, and only to find that that is death. So then she dies, but after she just hits the ground, Eros wakes her up. Sometimes it's by kissing her, as in this work, and sometimes it's by using something such as an arrow. I think kissing her is more apt. You can see here in the back is the container where she was holding the special ointment from Persephone. And you can see the two of them gazing into each other's eyes. Now this has a very deep meaning, this scene, because we have Eros, which is basically the heart, right? The love, the god of love. And we have Psyche, which is the brain. There is psychology, the things that go on in your mind. And it's saying that true love, when it finally happens, is not when the mind and heart don't trust each other, but it's when the mind and heart, the logic and the emotion all come together in unity. So, you know enough about the story. Let's do some observation of this work using step 2 of what you have learned. What kind of shapes do you see? Triangle. Good. There's a triangle. There's a very strong triangle here, and then there's an empty triangle up here. That's excellent. And that is really balanced as a result, right? So this balances with that, the yin and yang almost. And also, it balances in that this triangle is very solid. It looks like it will not fall apart. Good. What other things do you notice? Let's look at the face. So, what do you notice about this face? Is it unique or universal? So, does it look like a specific person? No. Good. It does not look like a specific person. It looks like one European girl and another European young man. They're both very good looking, but it's not any particular person, right? And you can tell because their eyes are empty almost. Yeah? Their eyes don't have pupils, and he didn't carve any personality into them. And so they represent something bigger than their individuality. They represent something much more universal. Okay? Let's look at these lines. Are they very painterly or linear? Linear, good. So you can also use painterly and linear when describing statues. So of course it's not painted, but if it were a painterly line, you wouldn't see the clear lines of the statue. But here, they're very clear. They're very clear contour lines. It's the edges are very, very clean. So this is definitely linear. So to recap, this is very balanced. This is universal, not personal. It represents ideas bigger than the individual, philosophical ideas. And you said it was linear. So as a result, what era do you think it is from? Team brain or team heart? What? Let's pick someone. Who would like to say heart? Raise your hand. Okay, why would you say that it's heart? Just the topic of love doesn't mean it's heart, right? So we could have the topic of love, but we could still come from it in a very team brain's point of view. And in this case, it's very clear, very clean, right? It's universal, not individual. So it's objective, not subjective, meaning it's more like the brain, right? You know, when it's team heart, it's very subjective. And the lines usually bleed into one another. They're very unclear lines because you're all overwrought with emotions, all these emotions, right? But here the lines are very clear. And the actual form of this is very balanced, right? So it reminds you perhaps of the Oath of the Horatii by David. Do you remember that painting? Still? Let me search it up for you. Whoops. Do you remember this one? Yes. So this is Oath of the Horatii from the similar time period, the neoclassical, and in visual arts. And you can see that it has many similar features. First of all, it's very clean, it's linear, right? It's very balanced. There's those three very balanced arches, and the painter has balanced the three men with the three women, and then the central figure in the middle. So it's very balanced. And then it also has a theme of universality over the subjective. So, and lastly, this is also based on a Greek or Roman legend, right? So this is based on a Roman legend, and then this one's based on a Greek myth. But the two of them both are related to antiquity, which is something that the people from the neoclassical and classical era really enjoyed. So in music, we call this era the classical era, but in the visual arts, we call it the neoclassical era. The reason is because the classical era in visual arts refers to the initial one, the ancient Greek and Roman era. In visual arts, we call that one classical. So that name was already used. So here we call it neoclassical. But it's the same era. Neoclassical in art and classical in music are the same era, which is around 1787 to 1793, that era. Okay, so what else do you want to gauge from this painting? What is it trying to say? Well, I kind of revealed it to you at the beginning of the class, but what is the message of the artist? No. That has nothing to do with his message. That is a fact, right? What is his point of view? What is he trying to challenge, or what is his opinion? Yes, union of mind and love, or heart, if you want to call it, right? So what is true love? True love is the union of the mind, psyche, and the heart, eros, or love, right? So it's not just one thing, and it's not blind faith. So originally, when they first came together, she just had to believe him, right? She couldn't look at him in reality. She just had to use blind faith. And that's not love. Love is when you are allowed to know the person intellectually and you still continue to love them. You choose to, right? And it's also a choice, because in the end, Psyche doesn't come together with Eros against her will. It's because she chose to. And same with Eros. Eros had to fly to Psyche to kiss her. He wasn't forced to do it by his mother, right? So, but more importantly, in this picture, definitely, it's telling us that love is the union between the mind and the heart. And we can see that in this very balanced composition. So saying love is a very balanced thing. A lot of people might think love makes us a little bit crazy, right? But this guy doesn't believe that. Canova believes that love, actually, when it's done correctly, is supposed to be very stable, because it has both the heart and the brain. Great work. So let's go on to another work that also marries the flesh and the spiritual, the heart and the brain. Here we have something from the English Renaissance. Ben Jonson was a contemporary of Shakespeare, meaning he was from the same time as Shakespeare. Everybody knows Shakespeare, right? Romeo and Juliet from last class. And this is all at the very height of the English Renaissance. This poem has been set to music by many singers, including folk singers, pop singers, rock singers. You can check it out yourself. And it's from a collection called The Forest. Here is how it goes. Drink to me only with thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine. Or leave a kiss but in the cup, and I'll not look for wine. The thirst that from the soul doth rise, doth ask a drink divine, but might I of Jove's nectar sup, I would not change for thine. I sent thee late a rosy wreath, not so much honouring thee, as giving it a hope, that there it could not withered be. But thou thereon didst only breathe, and sent'st it back to me. Since when it grows and smells, I swear, not of itself, but thee. So, first of all, let's understand what this guy is trying to say, what the speaker is trying to say. Would anyone like to explain it for us? Okay, I will begin, but you can come in anytime. So this is someone who likes a woman. Many people think that the object of affection is actually Lady Mary Roth, but we don't know for sure. In any case, this person is called Celia. And this is the second poem that the speaker has written to Celia. Hence, it's called Song to Celia, number 2. And he's talking about a metaphor. What is the metaphor here? There's a big metaphor that happens throughout the entire first half of this poem. Rose? Rose is second half. The first half. Wine. Good. Okay, the first half is about wine. And he's making a very, very long metaphor, an extended metaphor, we call it, about wine. First, he says, drink to me only with thine eyes. So when you drink with someone, you usually look at them, right? And you say, ganbei, and you look at them with your cup. So he is saying, even if you just use your eyes to look at me, you don't have to say any ganbei words, right? You don't have to say anything, just look at me. Like, that is enough for me. I am drunk from just looking at you, looking at me. And sometimes we can also say we are drinking in someone's eyes, right? Like we don't have to have a cup of wine. We can just look into that person's eyes and, oh man, you see their soul, and that already makes you a little bit intoxicated. And he said, if you do that, then I will pledge with mine, so I will do the same. Or you could do another thing. You could leave a kiss. You don't even have to kiss me, just kiss your cup. And I will never look for putting wine in that cup. I'll just take that empty cup and it'll be enough for me because it has your kiss in it. The thirst that from the soul doth rise, doth ask a drink divine. So now we're moving into something a little more spiritual. The first two lines are more sensual, right? Like they're more in the, it's almost a little bit funny, a little bit sexy, a little bit cheeky, right? It's about kissing and looking at each other. But the third line becomes spiritual because he says the thirst that from the soul doth rise. So everybody has a soul that yearns for someone that could understand them, right? Something much deeper than just a kiss. And that soul asks for a special kind of drink. This kind of drink is not one you can just drink wine and slake. This is a kind of thirst that requires a divine drink. Now we know in the Psyche and Eros story that we just heard that there's something called ambrosia, right? Ambrosia is the usually golden, honey-colored liquid that if you drink it, you will become a god. So in the story we just heard about Psyche, Zeus gave her the ambrosia and she turned into the goddess of psychology, of the mind, right? Yeah, that's how she became a goddess, from being a regular girl to becoming a goddess. So here, Ben Johnson's speaker is saying, you know, if I could have some kind of drink like this, I would not drink it if I had you instead, if I had your drink instead. Because he said, but might I of Jove's nectar sup? So Jove is another name for Zeus. Zeus is the king of gods in Greek mythology. And he said, another word for Zeus is Jupiter. So even if I could drink from Jupiter's nectar or Zeus's nectar, so what is Zeus's nectar? It's the ambrosia, right? Ambrosia is the magical liquid that can turn you into a god. Ambrosia. It's a honey-colored, very golden liquid, usually very sweet, very delicious, and if you drink it, you will become immortal. You will become a god. You will never die. He said, even if I can drink that, I will say no, because I want to drink your wine. You're laughing. What are you laughing about?
I just think it's too sweet.
Yes. And so this is very interesting. Again, this line I would not change for thine, because at first it's spiritual, because it's about God, about the soul, right? But what is her nectar? It could be sexual, like her sweet mouth or somewhere that he can kiss and he can drink from that place. So he says he's marrying the spiritual with the sexual, right? It's not just spirit and it's not just the body. It's the two of them. Okay, so that's the whole first half of this poem. It would be a great poem already if we ended with this. But he has a second half. He says, I sent thee late a rosy wreath. So he says, recently I gave you a wreath. A wreath is a huaquan, like a circle with some flowers on it. And he says rosy, so maybe there are roses on it. Maybe it's pink, because roses are pink. Maybe he is also making an allusion to her rosy face. Not so much honoring thee as giving it a hope. So I didn't give you the flower to honor you. It was to give those roses a hope that they could not die. Because I am not even worthy to give you flowers to honor you. Like, I am not of your level to do that. But I gave you the flowers, so the flowers themselves, if they could be with you, they would never wither, which means they would never die. You have that special power. You're like a goddess to me. But thou thereon didst only breathe and sentst it back to me. Okay, so did this girl reject him? Maybe. Because she returned the flowers back to him, right? She sensed it back to me, so she sent it back to me. She only breathed on it and then sent it back. So she didn't keep it for a long time. But is he sorry about that? Is he unhappy about that? No, because he is so drunk with love. He says, since when it grows and smells, I swear, not of itself, but thee. So now I have the returned flowers that you rejected, but when I smell them, they no longer smell like the roses. They smell of you. And that is enough for me. And so even though he got a little bit rejected, he is still so happy to be even just in her presence. And here's the other thing. This might be a very royal lady or a high-class lady who is already married or maybe is too high up for him to be with, right? So even though she's rejecting him, it's already an honor. Because to even, have a conversation or even have your flowers given to her. Most people, their flowers don't even reach her. But his flowers reached her and came back. So that's already an achievement. Furthermore, it sounds like even though she is rejecting him, they're having a little bit of back and forth. Because he knows maybe what she smells like. And this way of talking to her in this poem is not like the first time you met someone. So you know this person a bit. But there's also a lot of respect and worship and tenderness. So let's guess what kind of speaker would write such a poem. Would it be a young man like Romeo, or would it be a little bit older man? Why do you think that?
Because he is full of passion, and even though the flowers is returning back, he is still very excited. I think it's more like a young man.
Okay, but the way that it's written, so the language of it, might suggest otherwise, because it's very measured. So, drink to me only with thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine. Or leave a kiss but in the cup, and I'll not look for wine. This is a very steady guy. Even if he's young, he's a very steady and not 冲动, not reactive kind of guy. He's thought for a long time about this, and he's quite steady in his way of expressing this love. So it might be a bit older, or it might be a young man who has a steady spirit. But he's not so much like maybe Romeo, who would just like suddenly kill someone so easily, right? Okay. And what do you think about any literary devices you see in this poem? So literary devices you can find. Metaphors, we already had metaphors, but any other literary devices you see? Okay, well, I have allusion. Oh, sorry, assonance. Let's do assonance first. So, assonance. So, assonance is when something begins with the same letter over and over again. For example, for, friends, phoned, furiously. Okay. Or 4 friends fought on the phone. Furiously. So you have a lot of F sounds. Now notice it doesn't have to be an F every time. It could be PH. It could be a different spelling, but it's the same sound. That's called assonance, when we have the same sound beginning the words. So do you have any examples of assonance in this poem? Yes, what is being assonated? No, that's called, so mine and wine is rhyming. Rhyming is when we have the ending the same, but the beginning the same. For example, leave a kiss, but in the cup. So k, k, that's assonance right there. And you also have doth ask a drink divine. It's a little bit of assonance of the d and dr sound. Any other ones? Yes. And smells, I swear. Good. Good. And the repetition of these sounds helps characterize the poem. So when we have a k sound, it's quite lively, usually. The s sound is slower. Smell, I swear. It's almost breathy, right? There's in there. So you could use different repetitions of sounds to give it some expressions. There's also a pun in here. A pun is a play on words. So, for example, pun. Okay. Pun is when you use a word that is not exactly that word, but it sounds like that word. So in here, the pun is, and sensed it back to me. So sensed is, what he means is sent, like sent back in Old English. But sensed also sounds like it's a pun for scent. Sense, like S-C-E-N-T-S. Scent means a smell, like a beautiful smell. So even though he's using this word, it's also a double meaning for a different word that is related. So that's called a pun. The literary device here is a pun. Of course, we also have rhyme, as you mentioned. So we have eyes, mine, wine, rise, divine, thine. So it's A, B, A, B, A. And then there's wreath, thee, there, be. So C, C, D, C. C, C, D, C. Do you see it? Does anyone not understand what I just did? So the rhyming, eyes, mine, wine, that's A. So A, and then cup is different, so B, A. And then rise, divine, thine, that's rhyming, but sup is different, so A, B, A. On this side, it's the same idea, but with different rhyming, different words rhyming. So we have different rhyming sounds. We have wreath, thee, be. So that would be 3 of the same, but in the middle there is different. So we have C, C, D, C. And breathe, me, thee. They're the same, but swear is different. So C, C, D, C. And then this is D because there and swear are the same. You see? So that's the rhyming scheme. So if I asked you, can you tell me what is the rhyming scheme of this poem? You just look at the very end of each line and give them a different letter if they end in a different sound. And you repeat the same letter if it rhymes, if it's the same rhyming sound. I think in Chinese poetry it's the same. So you should know what I'm talking about. Okay, so this has a very symmetrical composition, doesn't it? It's very symmetrical. Two equal sides, both very measured and steady. What else can you note about this work? Oh, symbolism. Okay.
The poem used the roses that never withered, and it rather than to his love never died because of the girl.
The rose is a symbolism for love that never dies.
Yeah, because the poem wrote that the rosy red will not wither because the girl giving me the hope, and I guess it rather than his love will never die because of the girl.
His love might never die, but he never says that. And you have to be careful. So he is hoping that the rosy wreath would never die, if it would go to her. It's not saying that it will never die. So it says, I give you my rosy wreath as giving it a hope that there it could not withered be. This emphasis is not, oh, my love will never die. That's not the emphasis. The emphasis is, you are so like a god that if I gave my roses, if I gave my grass, if I gave my dog, anything to you, they will never die. But it is you are magical. The emphasis is not on my love, it's on you. It's like you're a goddess. Everything you touch will last forever. So I disagree with what you said. Anything else you notice? Okay, so what is the so what of this work then? What do you think is the ultimate message of this poem? What is the poet trying to say about love? Yeah.
She showed her loyalty because she said she will leave a kiss, but her lover even kiss. She will not let you for long. So if her lover is loyal to her, she will also be loyal to her lover.
It doesn't say that. First of all, he doesn't care if she is loyal to him. It's like, I love you. I don't care if you're married. I don't care that you don't love me. The fact that you just exist is enough. That's what he's saying. So he doesn't care he's not saying, if you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. He never says that. This is love that's unconditional. 无条件的爱. Unconditional. There's no, if you do this, I do it too. No, it's, I don't care. You're above me. You are married to a king. I'm just a writer, but I love you. And that's enough. And maybe you'll never even look at me, but I love you. So that's enough. So first of all, that's one thing. And so there's not so much the thing about you do something, I do something back, but also about loyalty. I agree that he would be loyal to her. That's true. But I don't think that's the so what of the whole poem. You said one small sentence, that's correct. But what is the big picture? Want to try again? Okay. How about the boy beside you?
I think the word is exist, but does not exist as the whole point. Because it says a little kiss in the...
Yes, so what do you think is the whole poem's meaning? The whole poem's point?
that he would rather keep the keys in the car, but he will not find the other happiness because I think the winning is what represents the other happiness. So it want to show his loyalty.
Yes, but it's not the whole picture. So I'm asking, what is the big picture? Let's try the person behind. Say it louder. I can't hear you. Idealistic love.
It's not about physics, but more spiritual love.
It's not about what?
Not about physical.
It's not about physical, but more spiritual, you said. He says a lot of physical stuff. He says, I want to drink from your wine. Do you know what that means? Okay, the PG, do you know PG? The PG version 就是小孩可以看的 is it's the mouth, but it could be somewhere else. She has wine somewhere on her body that he would give a kiss to. I mean, this is very sexual. And during the Renaissance, it's okay to be sexual. Like, they had a lot of songs about sex. For example, do you remember the document I gave you at the very beginning of class with the Pendulum of Styles, the chapter from my thesis? So in it, there is a song called C'est qui va mourir, I believe. It's I Would Rather Die. So in that, during the Renaissance, they believed a climax during sex is dying. And they were like, the poem is talking about how he would happily die many times to be with this person. On the surface, it looks like he would happily die, like literally be killed many times for this person. But at the same time, if you read deeper at the other parts of that song, which is in my document, it's actually about sex. So he would happily have many climaxes with that person and be very pleased. And then there's another song, also from this era, where the words go up and down, up and down, up and down. Like the words and the songs go, the lyrics and the notes all go up and down. The words are up and down. And on the surface is about this boy and this girl who are running up and down a hill, but it's also sexual. So they're like in bed, going up and down. So here, when they're saying, might I of Jove's nectar sup? Sup means to suck, like see. So usually you drink wine, right? You don't sup wine. So to use that word, and then he says, but I would rather do it with you. I mean, this is very clear. It's very sexual. You see, the Renaissance is this excellent balance between sexuality and also spirituality, of heart and brain. So you see a lot of naked pictures from that time, right? People wearing no clothes, right? Yeah, a lot of people wearing no clothes, like statues, no clothes, paintings, no clothes. For example, Birth of Venus, Urbino, let me show you. This is everybody knows this one, right? This is from the Renaissance. This is the Birth of Venus by Botticelli. So this is a great painting from the Renaissance, and you can see, like, she has no clothes on, and she has a beautiful woman's figure, right? So on one hand, it's very sexual, but on the other hand, it's elevated. It's goddess level. It's not just just physical. There's always a spiritual element. And in the Renaissance, that wasn't a conflict. I think in today's world, it's like one or the other, right? Some pop songs, like, I don't know, Beyonce, some pop songs, they only have the sex part, but they don't have the spiritual part. Although Beyonce is pretty good. Maybe not Beyonce, but you know what I mean, sometimes. But in the Renaissance, they're not in conflict. You can have, this beautiful naked woman, but at the same time, she is a goddess. This is Venus. This is Aphrodite, by the way. So she is the person who eventually becomes Eros' mom. So this is the woman we're talking about. And she was supposed to be the most beautiful person, even though she's a goddess, the most beautiful person or goddess that ever existed. And the reason why she got upset at Psyche was because Psyche was so beautiful that some people were saying she was even more beautiful than Venus. So Venus got a bit jealous and decided to punish her. But instead of succeeding, we know how the story ends. Instead of succeeding, her son falls in love with Psyche. Yeah. So going back to your point, I don't think the gist of this piece is that it's all about spiritual love and no physical. I think this piece, in fact, the ultimate message is that, once again, spiritual and physical go together. And physical can be spiritual, and spiritual can be physical. It's not separated. And even the very last line, when he's talking about these roses smelling of the woman. So smells, when we use our senses, like smelling, touching, it's very body. It's very sensual. So he's using a smell to describe the roses and also of her. And that makes you, the reader, wonder, how did you know what she smells like? Right? So maybe you hugged her or were together, so you know what she smells like, because I don't know how you smell like, right? So he knows how she smells like. So that already is another clue. It's very elevated language, but at the same time, they share a very physical bond. Okay, but good attempt. So that is actually the bottom line of this work. Let's take a little break, maybe 10 minutes, and then we will do Turandot. Okay, let's come back. The last work that we're going to look at hails from the Romantic era. Even though this is 1926, this still counts as a Romantic work. So most Romantic works are from the 19th century, so 1800 to the turn of the 20th century. But in this case, even though it's 1926, a little bit over your usual cutoff point for the Romantic era, this piece counts as a Romantic work. So you see here, to count whether a work is whether... let me begin that sentence again. To see whether a work is Romantic, Baroque, Classical, or some other era, it's not just the time. Of course, time plays an important role. You can't say something from the Renaissance is classical. That's too long of a distance, because in the middle there was also the Baroque. But in this case, even though the next era has already begun, the 20th century has begun, this work, Turandot, still counts as a Romantic work because of how it sounds, because of the actual content of this work. So what is this work, Turandot? Turandot is an opera, and today we're going to look at a specific song from this opera called Nessun Dorma, or None Shall Sleep. This opera was composed by Puccini and left unfinished until someone else, Franco Alfano, completed it for him. Nessun Dorma, however, is completely Puccini's work. It was premiered in 1926, and it's actually based on a story that is about a Chinese princess So this story originated in the West. It had many retellings, just like Romeo and Juliet. It had many different people telling the same story in different formats. For example, in plays, in novels. And finally, here, Puccini turned it into an opera. It's about the West's imagination of what a Chinese princess would be like. It's not a real depiction of what China was like at that time. In this story, there once lived a princess who never smiled. And she was of the age where she needed to find someone to marry so that she could be married and have more children so that they can continue the dynasty. But everyone who came to win her hand, every suitor who came to her, was rejected. And she was very cruel in her rejection because whoever she thought wasn't good enough for her couldn't just leave. They were killed. And time passed until nobody really wanted to go ask her, "Will you marry me?" Because she was that scary. One day, there was a prince, Caliph, who was walking along, passing through China. He was going through with his the people who were accompanying him, but he was disguised, so people didn't know that he was a real prince. And as per usual, the princess appeared, and her people said, who would like to come over and say that they love the princess? Who would like to try to gain her hand? Nobody answered, of course, but Caliph saw the princess at that moment. And the thing was, even though she never smiled, she was extremely beautiful. And right away, Prince Caliph fell in love with her. And so he began to try to win her hand. Of course, she didn't want him. So she said, "I'm going to pose some riddles. And if you can find out the answers to these riddles, these 谜语, then you can marry me." So she asked her already 2 riddles, and he got them correct every time. This guy was a smart one. And finally, it was the last bit. And it turns out that she needed to know his name. So she had to guess his name. That was the last chance. Do you understand? So finally, she asked him some riddles. He answered all of them. He was going to win. So he reversed it. He said, "Why don't you answer a riddle? And if you can answer it, then you don't have to marry me." Why did Caliph do this? It was because he started feeling sorry for her. Because he really saw that she didn't want to marry anyone. And he wanted to give her a chance. So he said, if you really don't want to marry me, you can maybe do a challenge yourself. So guess what my name is. All this time, nobody knows what Caliph's name is. And of course, this princess goes all around town asking, who is this man? Who is this mysterious man? What is his name? Nobody knows, and most people can't answer. And she's very angry. She kills everybody who can't answer her. Until finally, she finds out his name. She finds and finds and finds and finally finds out his name. And basically, she had to tell his name before the morning of the next day. So she found the name. And she stood on the top of the wall of the big palace. And she said, "I know what his name is. He is going to meet his end. His name is love." Because at that moment, she suddenly changed. She was touched by the way that he treated her this whole time. First of all, he's a smart guy, but that wasn't why she liked him. The real reason that she changed her mind on him was because he gave her another chance. And even though she succeeded, she realized, you know what? Love is not about control or power. It's about compromise and understanding. So this was the first person who allowed her compromise and understanding. And that's why she said, this person's name is love. She didn't say his real name. And so as a result, he didn't get killed. He could live another day, and they ended up marrying. The song that we're going to listen to is called Nessun Dorma, No One Shall Sleep, or No One Sleeps. And this is the part of the story when Caliph, portrayed by Pavarotti, the tenor, has already told the princess about the challenge. Like, you can go look for my name. But she hasn't found out his name yet. And he is singing about his love at this time. Amazing. What are your feelings about Nessun Dorma? Is it your first time? Whose first time listening to this? Oh, really? First time. What do you think about it? Exciting. Yes, very courageous. Courageous man. What about you? Your blood is hot. He did a great job. And notice how he kept his mouth open after he finished. Well, he finished the... kept his mouth open the whole time because the piece wasn't done. There are a lot of singers who just... and the orchestra's going crazy, right? You have to participate in it somehow. So I really, really love his interpretation. Not just the mouth, of course everything as well, but every detail, even down to the opening the mouth at the end. So let's observe this piece using what we have learned in our Tools of Appreciation class. Someone get me started. What do you think of the melody? What do you think of the rhythm, the tempo? Who would like to tell me about the tempo? What is the tempo? What is tempo? Great. The speed at which the beats happen. So the speed of a song or a piece. What would you say is the tempo of this piece? What? Andante? Okay. Did you search? Okay. But it is a walking pace. It is a moderate pace on the slower side. Those are all correct answers. So if I asked you in a quiz or a test or something in the future, maybe you don't know that it's andante, but you can say it is moderately slow or moderate. Those are all correct. Saying that it's fast is not correct. Okay. How about the rhythm? So we have the speed, but now we have the notes moving inside this general speed. Is the rhythm regular or irregular? Regular. Good. So it's moving at a steady pace. And let's stretch it to the third step, just talking about tempo and rhythm. What does this suggest about his character or the meaning of this piece? If we choose a very steady rhythm that is going on and on at a moderate pace, what kind of guy is he? Is he a skittish guy? Is he easily scared? No. Yes. So he... Brave guy. Yeah, he's a brave guy. Especially if you pair it with the lyrics, with the words, right? So I don't know about you, but I think I would be pretty scared if the princess guessed my name and then I will die. I mean, that's pretty scary. But he doesn't seem to be daunted by that. So he goes at a very steady rhythm and moderate tempo. How about the melody? How would you characterize the melody? Yes, say everything. What did you say? Glorious melody. Okay, that is a subjective word. Can you use some other terms? For example, is the melody, what is the melody contour like? Is it stepwise or... It's usually going up, right? It's usually going upwards in gradual humps like this. Okay? And is it conjunct or disjunct? Well, there's a little bit of both, but near the end, definitely there's a lot of disjunct melody, right? And when it first begins, maybe there are parts where it's more conjunct, but definitely overall, it's disjunct. Excellent. So, again, let's take that to step 3. What can you tell about this guy? Here you can say it's pretty glorious. What's your name? Yeah. Yvonne. Levon? Oh, okay. Like, far away? Okay, never mind. Okay, Levon. So, yeah, you could say, because of this, therefore it's glorious. The glorious is step 3. Great. What about the harmonies? What did you notice about the harmonies? There are a lot of harmonies? Okay, that's not very descriptive. First of all, what is the texture? Is it monophonic, homophonic, or polyphonic? Homophonic. Okay. Why is it homophonic? Because there's the main melody that Caliph is singing, and then there's also the accompaniment by the orchestra. Now, how do we know the accompaniment is homophonic and not polyphonic? Because if you just listen to the orchestra, it sounds like a karaoke a little bit. Karaoke, right? Like it doesn't sound like it's complete. It doesn't really have a melody by itself. But when you put in the singer, all of a sudden it makes sense. So we would call this homophonic. During this time, there are a few places where it's also polyphonic. A few places when there are many voices doing things, but it's the minority. Most of the time, it's homophonic. So whenever we do these things in music, we try to say the general thing, unless, of course, I ask you a specific thing. Okay, and what do you think of the harmony? Is it more consonant or dissonant in general? Yes, it's generally consonant, which means what? And also the fact that it's homophonic. What does that mean for step 3? Why did this composer choose to do that? Because if you have the same words, you could have had it as a polyphonic work. Why didn't he write it as a polyphonic work? Well, maybe it's because if it's polyphonic, it doesn't really show the hero by himself, supported by the people around him, right? If it's polyphonic, it's like many princes. They're all pretty good. But if it's homophonic, then it's Prince Caliph on the top and then all the townspeople supporting him. And similarly, when it's consonant, what does that express? Why did the composer choose to have this as generally consonant instead of generally dissonant? You want to show what? This is want to show the prince's characteristic, which is what?
He's a brave person and he doesn't care whether he will be killed or not.
Yes, he's focusing on the positive, right? Which is like consonant, right? Yeah, if it's always about, oh, I'm going to be killed, all the dissonant sounds, then he would be more of a negative person, and we would call that a pessimist, right? So you could say that the consonant choices in harmony can show us that the prince is generally a very positive-minded person. You can say that. If you just say it shows his character, that's not enough, because you didn't tell me what is the character. So you can say the positive consonant harmonies, the consonant harmonies show us the positive mindset that he has. That would be great. Let's notice some more details here. I first want to draw your attention to the orchestra. You will hear some chimes of some bells, almost telling you that it's midnight or something. There are some bells telling you of the time. Okay, so do you hear them? Let's count how many there are. There was about 8, right? Okay, so what might that mean? Huh? Yes, it's 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock, and then you have maybe 10 hours, right, before the sun comes up and the results will come out. Yes. So this is a case of word painting, a little bit. So the words are nessun dorma, which is no one will sleep. And then meanwhile, the bell of the clock is chiming. And usually you can count how many there are to tell us what time it is. And here, I think we can count 8. Of course, we have to look at the written out music to be sure, but I think it's 8. So it would give us a clue that it's at least 8 p.m., maybe even more. Maybe we didn't hear one of them, but at least 8 p.m., right? So it's late. That's a cool touch. What do you think of the use of the chorus? So the chorus is the group of other people who are singing, not the main guy. They give you the atmosphere, but are they against him? Are they supporting him? They're supporting him. Yes. How do you know that? They have some dissonance in there, actually. Oh, yes. So they sing together. They're all singing the same thing. They're unified, united as one, right? And they're also singing the same words as the main guy, as Caliph, right? So they're really supporting him, almost like cheering him on. It's like, no one will sleep, we will support this brave man, and if it means we will die, then so be it. Yeah. So what do you think about the ultimate message of this piece? What does it try to say about love? What is Puccini's message about love, and especially a confession? Let me ask you a different question. If you have confessed your love to someone, maybe in university or maybe in high school, I don't know, did you feel scared when you were doing it? Not scared? I can't hear you. Why will you be scared? Because the person might say no, and then your life is over. They might say no, and then you will always be so embarrassed when you see them again. Right? So, Puccini has taken the act of confession, and he's shown you what a confession is really like. Confession is like death, almost death, right? You put yourself out there, that's a confession. You show everything about yourself, all your heart, and usually you have it closed. Usually you're protected. You don't show everyone what you're thinking very deeply. You're protected. But when you're saying confession, suddenly everything is open. Your heart is open for someone to break, right? And yet, you still have to do it, because if you never confess, then you'll just secretly love that person for another several years until they marry someone else. So you think, okay, well, I have to confess, I have to show myself and take that risk. But when you are taking that risk, it's almost like putting yourself out there to possibly be killed. And this is exactly what Prince Caliph is doing. So once again, art, remember I told you, art shows us the truth. So here, art is exposing the truth. It's telling us that when we have a confession, it's like putting ourselves open, like without any protection. Anybody could just put a knife in our heart, because our heart is right open, right over here. But can you do that? Are you brave enough to do that? Because if you're not, then you're not worth love. Right? you're not worth getting the princess. If you truly love something, and this is not just confession between a boy and a girl or romantically, this is confession for the work you love. Or maybe you want to join a company. You want to join, I don't know, Google or Disney or something. You want to join a big company. It's really hard, right? You have to put yourself out there. And there's a chance people will laugh at you. People will think you're not good enough. At that moment, just after you put everything out there in the open, you'll feel like you just got killed, right? But in order to get what you want, in order to have victory, as he sings in the end, like he's singing about I will win, right? In order to get to that point, you have to take the step to be brave and to put yourself out there. That's what this song is trying to show us. That in order to get what you think is important, you have to open yourself to the point that you almost are killed. Are you brave enough? If you are, it's not guaranteed, but if you are, maybe you will get it. You will get the princess. Right? So that's what this song is really about. And I think that's why you were feeling really hot. You were feeling your blood getting hot, and you were feeling excited. You don't have to be in love with a princess to share that kind of emotion. If you ever, as a regular human, ever wanted something very badly, and you had to show yourself in order to get it, you would have the same emotions as our friend Caleb here. Yes, I saw a hand.
I think if you think that opening up is a risk, does that mean you're actually not that in love? Because humans are built to live in this world, and you love someone, and you convince yourself you're in love until you maybe you're proven wrong, and that's okay. That's how love is. That's how life is. And if you think, oh, that's too much risk, probably I will die for that.
Have you ever confessed to anyone? Yeah? Well, usually in hindsight we think that. But when you are doing it at that time, you are putting a lot of yourself, when you're living inside it, you usually don't think like that. Why? Well, because most people aren't as wise as you. Most people live in the present. They don't see that far into the future, right? That we will all die and everything will be fine. Often when we confess something, it's after a long time of imagining that you're going to be with that person already. And you are trying to think of a way to make what you imagine come true. You have put all your hopes into it. And you have put so much of your hope that you cannot even imagine a life any other way. If you only like someone a little bit, maybe you can be like, well, if we don't work out, I can always continue my life, have a great day, and then one day I'll fall in love with someone else again. But sometimes when you really are in love, and you're maybe really inside it, you're not as wise as you are, we often plan our whole life with that person. We imagine every situation with that person. When we're growing old, when we buy our house, when we're even buried together. And if you don't confess, then that is still a possibility. It's always a question mark. But if you do confess, there's a possibility that the person will reject you, and all that future you built in your head will be destroyed. And on top of that, when you really confess, you usually show some part of yourself that nobody has seen. That is a very vulnerable side of you. Now that is something very clear, right? It's like when I confess something, I'm not usually like this. Like if I'm confessing to someone I love, I'm telling them my darkest secrets, my fears, my difficulties, my pains, my weaknesses. These are things that I don't usually show to everyone I meet. But with someone you believe you love, you would show that. And there's the possibility that that person is like, ha ha, you're so weak. And you'll just feel crushed. But then if you never show who you truly are on the inside, you will never know love at the very deepest part of yourself. So I do think confession does take with it a degree of extreme risk. And at least at the time that you're doing it, it feels like a big challenge. Furthermore, there's also the possibility that, number one, your life will be ruined because you'll never be with that person ever again, and that person is the only person who will be perfect for you. That's what you believe at that time. And second of all, now they're your classmate, and you have to see them for the rest of the year. And every time you see them, you'll want to look the other way because you're so embarrassed. Now, not everyone is like that, but I think a large number of people are like that. What did you want to say? Say it again?
I think you just mentioned the compassion.
Yes.
But I think this prince is not much complex. Because from the perspective of princess, she doesn't even know his name. Only the prince he expressed is he's very rushed to get this prince. And he just said a very tricky question, like, oh, you guess my name. But this question is, it's really tricky.
Oh, no. Before she asked some different questions.
Yeah, but the main that this princess is she wants to avoid the marriage.
Yes.
She has this very nervous and anxiety. But the prince didn't alleviate this anxious. He just shows that he's smart and his determination.
Well, he wanted to save her face. 给她留个脸，留个面子。
Yeah, but it's not fair for the princess.
It's not fair for the princess? You think he should just say, okay, you don't want to marry me, that's fine?
Probably this is a way to solve this, but he shows, I think it's 颠倒的这个主动，就是他会去尝试他给这个公主I give you another chance, you can get my name or I will die. But this is 就是他的主动权变成了这个男性手里，并不是这个女性。
可是在这之前，这个女孩一直在杀她的 suitor， 所以这完全是合理的。就是又不是这个女孩恐婚，然后她就自己把自己关起来，她是就是在这之前见到一个就杀一个，见到一个就杀一个。这个男的是唯一一个可以勇敢的站在她面前说我们是平等的，你怎么对别人，那我就怎么对你。可是同时我会给你一个 chance， 这已经是够仁慈的了。就是这个女孩如果先头是恐婚，我知道，如果你讲的那个情节的话，就是应该是这个女的恐婚，然后她自己躲着，然后这个男的看到她好像有点怕结婚，那我就不打扰她了，我也走，这可以的，这是合理的。可是这个女孩一直就是说，你过来的话，你猜错我的谜语，我就把你杀了。那这个男孩他是冒着这样子的危险去做了这些事情，而且还成功了，他完全是可以就立刻说当我的媳妇儿吧，就是直接就把她拿回去了。可是他没有这样子，他还是给他了一个机会，就已经够给他就是一个机会。而且我认为他最想就是他想让这个女孩打开，就是Caleb 在这个女孩上面看到她其实里面是一个可以化开的心的，她不是一个真正恐婚的女孩，她是其实可以拥有一个幸福家庭，就是幸福的爱情生活的一个人。她只是因为就是这个女孩她有一个 backstory， 就是她的祖先有一个外婆还是什么，一个 grandmother， 然后那个 grandmother 呢以前是个太后，然后呢就娶了不是嫁给几个人，然后那个人就是把他们全家差点灭亡了。所以因为她这个 backstory 呢，她就自己也不想结婚。可是这个 prince 呢看到这个女孩的内心，而且看到就是说你其实可以拥有更多的，你不应该把自己只是关在这里，就是你可以出来，然后跟我 we can be equals。 而且这是一个 I think that's why Caleb is so courageous， 他不只是一个想拥有那个女孩的一个人，他是想进入那个女孩的内心，然后把她带出来，因为他知道这个女孩其实是想出来的。Yes. 确实，如果只看这一个歌的话，可能会感觉他有点大男子主义 or something. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We always, art always is bigger than life, but it's to tell us a truth that is already in life and make it more clear through art, through the questions and discussions that it makes us have as viewers. Okay, great. I really liked our discussion today. So have a happy National Day tomorrow, and then see you next class, during which it will be a quiz. So study well, no homework except to study for your quiz. Bye-bye.